What I usually hear is, I'm never getting remarried again. And there's some truth to that. Because getting divorced and having some difficulties with it, who wants to go through this again? But I don't want this idea of not getting remarried again stopping you from finding love again. Welcome back to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. I'm Corey Shapiro. The goal of this podcast, we usually focus on that time where there's been some type of some type of incident in your mind, and you want to act out. You want to act out now from energy, stress, anger. And sometimes acting out might have negative long-term consequences. That's what we usually focus on. But we're doing something special at the end of the season. We're focusing on phase 3. And remind you, phase 1 is get clarity. That's what we do in this podcast. And phase 2 is get going. That's actually doing the divorce. And phase 3 is getting your life back. That's what we're focusing on. And this is part 2 of a 3-part series on this. And today's episode's focus is on, finding a new life, a new love. I think that's important to have a new partner. And the course summary is, I don't really care if you get married or not, but I do think it would be nice if you can find someone that you really care about and love and move on in a better way. And that's the focus of this podcast episode. So the course summary is, we got to sometimes move forward where we don't feel everything's lined up. It's sort of what Seth Godin says, everything's a 0.9. Nothing's ever finished. And that's like your life. So you don't have to wait till you're perfect, fully healed. You just have to move forward. And that's my encouragement from this podcast episode. Let me give you some concepts to think about. I want to think about this idea of post-divorce, or it could just actually be trauma, post-divorce trauma and growth. There's a trauma in getting divorced, but we can grow from it. And I think that's really important. I want to also think about this concept of manifestation, where you're manifesting what you want as if you already have it. It's not magical, and it's not wishful thinking. You actually assume you have it, and you're acting as if you already have it, because you can't have it in the physical world, in reality, unless you believe you already have it in your mind. That's the idea. And sort of like a simpler way to say this maybe is, you got to fake it till you make it. And that's what we're got to do here. Now, let me give you some real world examples. I've been practicing for almost 25 years as a lawyer here in New York City, and I hear this often. And when I first heard it, it made me really sad. But now when I hear it, I understand that there's a certain path. And what I usually hear is, I'm never getting remarried again. And there's some truth to that. Because getting divorced and having some difficulties with it, who wants to go through this again? But I don't want this idea of not getting remarried again stopping you from finding love again. And let me just break down marriage. I wasn't a big believer in marriage. I didn't get married until I was in my 50s. Okay. A lot of things because of what happened as a child, and then my own growth, and then just finding the right partner who would accept me and all my issues and how to work through them. But there's parts of marriage that made no sense to me and still doesn't. For example, why is the court so involved in a personal relationship? Someone can take your retirement accounts when they didn't really work and you did. So there's a lot of parts about the marriage which doesn't make sense to me. On the other hand, now that being married, I do think there's another aspect of it which is so important, which is finding a true partner, on the spiritual, on the emotional side, and sharing your life with your partner. I do think you're supposed to share your life with someone, hopefully someone that you really care and love about. That's what I would want for you. So sometimes coming from a divorce, people are so beaten down that they don't want to, it's hard for them to go out there and find someone new. And then that's not only for divorce. You also see this in widows. My grandfather died when I was only like a year or two, back in the 70s. And my grandmother at the time, I think was only in her 50s, and she never remarried. And I always asked her about, why don't you find a partner? And she would sort of push me off because I was too young. But finally, because she lived until her 90s, she finally started talking to me more as an adult. And she finally confessed to me that she made a mistake. that she wished she did find a new partner and that her life would have been different. So I want you to take that time to heal. And that's really was the first part of this series on getting to the life, getting your life back. It takes time to heal. There's sort of like an emotional jet lag, if you will, where it takes time for your body to catch up. I flew out to California recently to see my friend, and it's 7:00 in California, but I'm still at New York time. So I don't want to have dinner at 7:00. I want to go to sleep because, it's later for me. And that's sort of what happens with emotional jet lag. So you process this. I understand it's going to take time. It usually takes up to 2 years to grieve. And you might had to delay your grieving during your divorce. That's usually what happens. You delay your grieving. So now you have about 2 years and wherever you are, but I don't want you to think, oh, I don't want to be out there anymore. I don't want to meet anyone anymore. And you don't have to feel like you have to be perfect to move forward. So my paraphrase for this episode is I don't need to see the whole path. I just need to take the next step. And my action steps is what is that next step you can take? Now, it depends on where you are. If you did your grieving, your divorce wasn't so crazy, this is going to be faster for you. But if you had a multi-year divorce and you couldn't really grieve, then spend time in that space of recovery, of healing. And then what's that one step you can do where you're starting to feel balanced? So for example, I'm not asking you to leap. I'm not asking you to take any leaps here. I get so anxious too. So for example, when I wrote my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, all I had was negative thoughts. Like, how can I write a book? I never wrote a book. All these thoughts has come up. Who are you to write something? And literally, I was like fighting against myself. Then I realized I got to go talk to some people who actually wrote books because I didn't have the right mindset. And they made me feel so like this is a normal experience. Like even great authors feel this way. And it's a process. It's a process. So for example, a micro step you can do is downloading a dating app. I'm not saying this is the only thing you can do, but this is a micro step. You can say, today, I'm just going to download a dating app. I didn't say you had to sign up. I didn't say you had to go on any dates. You see, don't you feel like it's so easy? I just have to do this micro step, but that moves you forward. And then tomorrow, what could you do? Now, if you really want to take this to the next level, how about this idea? Why don't you think about yourself at 85? Maybe take a walk or a hike, or when I say a hike, I just mean a nature walk, not like a real hike, just a nature walk on a path. So do that. Take a recorder and just record your life. So now you're 85, pretend you're 85. And what do you want to have in your life? And just literally just stream of conscious. It could be an hour and a half of just stream of conscious. This is a great exercise, by the way. And then literally come back home, put all of that into ChatGPT, and just ask it to summarize and ask it to build you a step-by-step process of working backwards. Like, how would I get there? So for example, if I wanted to lose 10 pounds and I give myself 6 months to do that, what do I have to do each day to achieve that goal? And just micro steps. Don't overwhelm me. Tell ChatGPT not to overwhelm me. I get too much anxiety. I don't have the patience for this. I just one simple step each day. For me, for example, on my weight, I generally don't eat after 6. That's it. It's easy to follow, except for like a cheat meal on Friday. So that's the point. Take your micro step, move you forward. I know you've been through a lot. I know there's aspects of marriage which doesn't necessarily make any sense, but I want you to focus on repartnering and going out there, and you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You just need some progress. Not asking you to really go outside your comfort zone, but just every day a little bit, just a little bit. And then maybe in like a month or 2 or 3, you'll be a very different person if you follow this journey. All right? I told you could get through this divorce, and you did it. And now you can get through this step. You can get your life back in the way you want. It might take some time. We got to restart that engine, but you can do it. So I'm Corey Shapiro. Thanks for listening.
This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.